Well, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the second episode of Landscape North. I'm here with Toon Dreessen from DCA. Before we get started, Toon, maybe you can just give the audience a quick overview of your experience and what DCA does in Ottawa.
So we're a well-established architectural practice with roots going back more than 40 years. I've been the owner of this practice for 5 years now. I've been partner here for 7. We have a long history. We're one of only a handful of ISO 9001 certified companies in architectural practices in Canada.
That's a lot of work.
Which is a lot of work.
Yeah.
In fact, our audit's tomorrow. Fingers crossed. Yeah. And we have a pretty diverse range of projects, from industrial, military, commercial, residential, mixed use, infill, tenant fit ups, some heritage work, a huge variety of stuff.
Nice.
We do some urban design work. We did a pro bono study for the Bayard Market, and we won some urban design award for it, and we do a lot of really interesting kind of projects.
Perfect. Well done. I just wanted to focus in a little bit on the landscape architectural side of the business. So I'm going to get your viewpoints on what you've seen in the past, how that's changed, what you see going forward, and get your perspective on how that ties in with building architecture.
Well, I think that landscape architecture is a really critical part of the overall cohesive, holistic design. It's one thing to just have a building and plunk it on a sidewalk, but it doesn't do much for the public space and the public realm. And I think landscape architecture really bridges that space between the bus stop and the building. Okay. is really, I think, a really important piece of that. And it's everything from, the way that the sidewalk, the pavers, the planters, the layout, the approach, the accessibility. It's the public space that's created between the building, which is my job, and between the street and the public right-of-way, which is sort of, the city. And I think when we have a really strong, well-designed landscape space and public realm, we really enhance the quality of life for citizens everywhere.
Cool. And what trends do you see that you've seen sort of progress over the last couple of years on the landscape side?
I think a greater awareness of the role of landscape space and public space, places for people to sit, people to relax, a place for people to sort of take their breath and see the landscape around them, whether that's the city and they're sitting there watching the traffic go by, or they're eating lunch in a plaza as they come out from their office building. I think in terms of trends, I think what we're seeing more and more awareness of is the importance of native plants and native materials.
That makes sense, yeah.
Getting people to recognize that if we bring in rare Brazilian hardwoods, they're not going to survive in a northern climate, right. And the bugs don't like them, and the bees don't like them. So let's plant stuff that's indigenous to our community and our culture, and let's also plant stuff that can take care of itself. And I think it's always kind of interesting when we design a building, the landscape component is sort of the last thing to go in, and it kind of looks a little scraggly sometimes in the beginning because it's budget got cut, so you got a 25 millimeter tree instead of a 45 millimeter tree, and it looks a little scraggly, and you give it a few years and the landscape really kind of comes into its own and gets seated and really gets a sense of how it fits, and it really becomes part of the landscape.
Right. One of the trends that we've seen is more applications for amenity space on rooftops. Mm-hmm. Have you noticed that in the Ottawa market as well?
Yeah, for sure. I think there's a real interest in wanting to use rooftops. I think there's a bit of a challenge to some of them because, I wouldn't really want to sit on a rooftop patio that was, 300 feet in the air. Right. That's not really fun, right? You get a great view, but it's windy, it's noisy from the air handling equipment. It's maybe not the best space in the world, but also sitting on a rooftop patio of a one-story building also isn't very private. So I think there's sort of a happy medium.
Got it. Yeah. Right. Anything else that you wanted to add to the landscape architectural community?
Well, I think that something to think about is that, I'm part of a small group of people that's working on a national policy on the built environment. And I encourage all landscape architects, all lovers of the built environment to find a way to raise their voice. You can find the website, the Twitter feed is @RiseForArch. The hashtag is #RiseForArchitecture. It's a great national conversation that's happening on the relationship of the built environment to people and its sense of place, its connection to our prosperity and our potential to achieve the society we aspire to. And landscape architects are a part of that conversation. So I encourage landscape architects, interns, students, everyone who loves the built environment to get involved.
Perfect. Thanks very much. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.